Are you ready for a wild ride? I'm Alexis Artin, and I invite you to strap in because this is more than a podcast. This is Look at Me Now. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Look at Me Now. I am so psyched that y'all are here. This has been a labor of love that has been making its way to see the light of day for several years now. So my heart is swollen and I am beyond freaking thrilled to finally be on this mic with y'all. So what is this podcast? This podcast is where we are going to turn around on the timeline and we are going to look back at the past. And then we are going to stand in the present moment and really observe and acknowledge all of those lessons. And then we're going to face forward and we're going to look at what the future has to hold based on what we have gathered from our collective history. And I will share with you that in my past, when I turn around on my timeline, I see plane crashes. I see depression and anxiety and suicidal tendencies. I see adolescent drug use and plastic surgery when I was way too young to have had it, because I thought I could carve myself on the outside into someone that might be a little bit more lovable than I thought I was on the inside. I see postpartum depression. I see abuse, whether that was in my romantic relationships or my career relationships, whether that was in my financial relationship with money. I see myself at the red hot center of a full-on cult that it took me years to get out of. I see a girl who waited tables at Hooters and the same girl who was eventually flying on private jets with A-list celebrities. I see someone who faced really intense material starting from a very young age, whether that was illness or death, to someone who had to become really resilient, really young, probably before she was ready as a result of all of those things. I am the product of my father, who is a doctor and a scientist by nature, and my mother, who was a psychologist and turned badass businesswoman. So you can see the embodiment even in me now, a coach, a businesswoman, someone who really loves to marry science with the idea of well-being and empathy and compassion. There is so much in the world of wellness that we come by honestly through illness. And I believe that that happens in the natural course of balance that is inherent in everything. I believe that for day there's night, for ebb there is flow. What goes up must come down, equal distance. And that there is always an opportunity to see more than we see. That for every shadow, there is equal light. And this podcast is here to explore all of that. How this podcast actually came to be is because in my past, I have a relationship with a friend who's almost like family, and her name is Allison. And Allison and I were sitting together at a baby shower once. And she was so bemused by the fact that I was a female empowerment coach. And she felt called to tell me that she had a story that she wanted me to share with any woman that was willing to listen. And that was that Allison is a high-powered attorney at a really well-known, one of the biggest movie picture companies that exists today. And that when she was going through law school, that she let her neighbor snort lines of cocaine off of her ass for $100 a pop. And Allison had zero story attached to it. She was completely unshamed about sharing that information. And in fact, she capped it off by saying, "And look at me now." And it really blew my doors off. The way she was approaching a story that many women who have and would come to me with a similar story would be carrying so much shame around it, so much regret. They would be layering identity and identity on top of that story about what it meant about who they were and what was possible for them and what box it puts them in and all of these things. And here this woman was turning to me and saying, "Look at me now. I'm living my dream." And there is something really, really powerful about that. So all of this to say, I'm all worked up to bring this podcast to you. I'm super excited about bringing you a story of human resilience through podcast. And as we are in pre-production for this, I got diagnosed with cancer. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, people. So here I am in chemo and radiation after having a radical hysterectomy in which they removed my uterus and my ovaries and my fallopian tube, my cervix. And am really in real time sharing with you all that even though life hands us challenges, that there are inherent rewards, there are gifts to be had. And it's about being in the conversation of seeing those things, of being aware of those things, of embodying those things, of acknowledging those things. And I am excited to blend, if you will, past, present, and future with you in real time, with celebrities, with friends, with people from my past, to introduce you to people that hopefully will be in your future, to bring experts to you, and not because they know better about what's best for you, but because they themselves have leaned into an area that inspires them so that they can then serve you and bring you wisdom. This podcast really, in essence, is about taking the idea of ownership, the idea of the world being what we create out of it, and owning it. It's in the name itself. Look at me now. So many people would hear a title like that and say, that's all about the external gaze. That's about the kid that was bullied who gets to become this beloved celebrity and say, "So look at me now," right? In your face. And that is not what this podcast is about. It's actually reverse engineering that, where the applause, where the win is in the mirror. It is internalized. It is not externalized. The idea of success isn't something that can be outwardly measured, just as our values and our value cannot be outwardly measured. That whatever we have done or not done, we are worthy of love and we are not alone. We are really in this together. And so the opportunity in this moment is to say that the present is bringing this podcast to you, and the future remains unknown, but we're in it together. And we will be inviting in all sorts of experiences and opportunities and possibilities for us to grow and for us to continually turn inward and home to ourselves with a sense of love and a sense of appreciation, gratitude, enthusiasm for our lives and what's possible in them, and really own that we get to say, "Look at me now." So with that, I'll keep today short and say I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Lots of love, friends. Join us for Look at Me Now, wherever you listen to podcasts, and be sure to share, like, and subscribe.